Hey everybody, happy Thursday. Well, we have been rained out of our Saturday show. That's okay. We're going to be at the one that they're having in Clover in June. So, no big deal. All things happen for a reason. And, honestly, that's the main reason for the little post today is, sometimes things just don't work out the way that we want it to work out. We would have loved to have done that show. It's nice to get out and, see some people and, obviously make some sales, but, all things happen for a reason. I don't know. I have no idea, other than, obviously, with the rain coming in and the condition that, the area that we'd be in, would be in after all that rain, obviously it just makes sense to cancel the show, but it is what it is. You just have to move on, make the best of it. There's probably something else that we really need to focus our attention on Saturday, and that's exactly what we're going to do. We've got some things in the works that we've need to get finished, so this is going to give us a little bit of time to do that, or it might give us a little bit of time to relax because I don't think we've stopped this year. But either way, it is what it is. And going back to what I was saying, not everything is going to work out the way we want it to. But sometimes, things happen for a reason. And, we have to learn from it. We have to grow from it. And, that's just the way of life. And it's really what you make out of it. Could I get mad, fuss, and raise Cain and cuss, because Jim doesn't get to go out and show off his beer products? Well, of course I could. Is it worth it? No. Does it do anything to help build anyone else up? No. Does it make Jim look like a big idiot? Yes, it does. And it would make Jim look like a big old dum-dum. And, we don't want to do that. Honestly, we'll figure it out. There's other things that we can work on. And that's just the way that sometimes you have to look at it. Where can I move from where I'm at right now, that place? What can I learn from what just happened? Where can I grow to, I don't know, keep that from happening again? I know we can't, predict the rain. I think, good old, in our area, Larry Sprinkle, he does a pretty darn good job of predicting the rain. We can't keep it from raining, so there's nothing we can do to make a show happen, when it's calling for rain, other than saying some prayers. We have prayed in some sunshine. But in other areas of our life, when things don't go the way we would like for them to have turned out, give yourself that five minutes to, get upset, fuss, raise Cain, whatever you got to do to get it out of your system, but don't stay in that place. That's the big thing. You don't stay in that place. You have to move on from there because life's too short. Life is entirely too short to focus on things that, might just be totally out of our control. We can't control the rain. I can't. Other forces can, but I know Jim can. But Jim can control how he reacts to different things. We all can. We don't always think about it in the moment, but the point about it is to get better every day. I read a book, and it basically talks about getting 1% better every day. What I mean? People can strive to, for all these great big aspirations and you know, losing, 150 pounds, that's amazing. But what's your plan for doing that? What system did you put in place to set you up for success? I mean, it's got to be more than just, well, I'm going to exercise. Sometimes it takes more than that. It takes discipline in other areas too. I'm going to make X amount of money, by the end of the year. That's good. What's your plan for doing that? I want to sell X amount of products, by the end of the year. That's fine. Once again, what's your plan for doing that? Not your goal. What is your system that you have put in place to make it to where you can succeed at what you are trying to do? Goals are good. They are. It's good to have something in mind. But, I mean, goals, that's just what it is. There's got to be something that's put in place for you to be able to achieve that goal. And that's the thing. We didn't get to do this show. That's fine. What am I going to use with this extra time? Am I going to rest? I don't know. It'd be good to, have a day off. I mean, I know Lisa would love to have a day off. She never stops. Good Lord. She never stops. So, I mean, I know she would probably appreciate it. So we got this extra time. It just all boils down to, how you look at stuff, what your takeaway is from it. And that determines, the place that you're at that point in time. Once again, could I be mad? Sure. Should I be mad? No. It was something out of everyone's control. But anyhow, thing about it is, just, set yourself up.